leaders into parliament to put things right again.
Lower cost of living, make housing affordable.
Good jobs for our citizens and easy living for our poor. Progress Singapore, this is our party. Progress Singapore, or simply PSP. Progress Singapore, it's for you and me, for country, for people, for PSP.
We don't want a country to be run like a company.
Public goods and services are not meant to make money.
And a healthcare system, tax scheme that helps the poor.
Education that grooms our kids. Passionate Singapore. Progress Singapore. This is our party. Progress Singapore. Or simply PSP.
My young fellow, you must have courage, you must have passion, and above all, you must have the strength in conviction.
Progress Singapore.
This is our party. Progress Singapore. Or simply PSP. Progress Singapore. It's for you and me. For country, for people. Vote PSP.
Welcome to PSP eRally. Please feel free to post your question using the Q&A function on Zoom or comments on Facebook Live. In your question, you may like to identify yourself and which constituency you're in. Once again, it gives me great pleasure to hand over tonight's eRally session to Mr. Craig Teo, our amazing and dedicated PSP moderator. Craig, over to you.
Thank you very much there. And there was the lovely Grace who just did the voiceover. Hi, very good evening to everyone who is joining us here for our e-rally, the fourth e-rally that we are running, and the final one as well, because after tonight, no more e-rallies, then we are almost going into election mode already, the polling day. I mean, that's on the 10th, which is this coming Friday. So for those of you who are tuning in to us for the first time, my name is Craig, and I also like to welcome all the viewers who are joining us on the Zoom webinar, and especially to all who are joining us on Facebook Live as well. And for tonight, we have the West Coast GRC team together with the Pioneer SMC that are here with us this evening. So folks, before we get down to the rally proper, so-called, I'd just like to highlight some things to the voters in Singapore and the residents in Singapore. If in case you want to support PSP, you can go and buy some of our merchandise. And can we put a picture of the slide of the merchandise that are on sale? Yes, that's right. We have it right now. PSP merchandise is on sale. And if you want to buy our Autica, our Autica Otter is selling at $30 each, but if you buy a pair, you get them at $25, which is $50 for a pair. And we have our cap. Our cap is going at $10 each, and our round neck t-shirt will be at $15. And the location you can go and pick up this PSP merchandise will be at Marina Square, and the unit is 02-332B, and the name of the shop is called Passions. They sell a lot of antique watches there. So the owner was very kind to have given us some space to display our merchandise. So those of you who want to get our PSP merchandise, that's the place to go to. And as Marina Square Shopping Mall is quite a big space, the unit 02-332 is located at the site that is nearest to Pan Pacific Hotel. And the shop is open daily from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. So that will help us to raise much needed funds for this general election that's running right now. And talking about donations and funds, I'd like to bring up the next slide for those of you who are watching and would like to make a contribution to PSP. So our campaign fundraising, you can do it by PayNow. The DBS Bank UAN number is T1919 and the SS, not 55, SS 0061. And the alphabet is England, Holland, Osaka, London. That is the UEN number for PSP. And when you make the donation, you have to give us right now the amount, your contact number, and your name. The easiest right now will be for you to maybe just take a screenshot, because we do have the QR code on the thing as well. You can scan the QR code and it brings you directly to our website and the donation page. Now, for those of you who are wanting to write us a check, excuse me, that will be good too. You write the check to Progress Singapore Party and then you mail it to 170 Upper Bukit Timah Road, Hex 14-04 Bukit Timah Shopping Center, and the postal code there is 588179. So then we bring on the next, excuse me, bring on the next, yeah, okay, the next slide is on. Now, in case you're wondering, this is why we need your contact number and name is because this is a requirement by the Elections Department, otherwise known as the ELD, has informed us that the record keeping requirement, including the provision of contact number, supersedes the confidentiality provisions under the Personal Data Protection Act, otherwise known as PDPA. So PSP will ensure that all information provided is kept strictly confidential. So the reason for this is because only Singaporeans who are aged 21 years and above are allowed to make donations to political parties. So if you are a permanent resident, a foreigner, you are not allowed to do so. And the reason is very simple. The government does not allow foreigners to intervene in our general elections, which is a good thing, so that Singaporeans alone will decide how our country moves forward. So once again, only Singaporeans aged 21 and above will be allowed to make donations to political parties. So folks, tonight we're going to introduce all the slate of candidates who are from West Coast GRC, including Pioneer SMC. We're going to put them in sequence, and they will be given a chance to share with you and make their rally speeches as well, so Singaporeans understand what are the issues that are resonating for them and what they're going to bring with them into Parliament when you elect them, okay, when they're elected to get into Parliament. So the first person, well, of course, needs no introduction. But before we bring him on, we'd just like to let you all know that PSP has done something very unique. Okay, we are the only political party that has produced a dialect video. And this was done in a mixture of mostly Teochew, some Hokkien, a little bit of Cantonese, so on and so forth, to reach out to the pioneer generation, because there were many people who said, how come we are not reaching out to them? So we did this skit, okay, this skit which is done in dialect. And if the skit is ready, if my technical people can get it up, and we will show it to Singapore.
Hello， 黃曬夜風，
哇，特登啊，哇，無想到咱會搞吼啊，我能好是甲伊個建國一代嘅老朋友啦吼，鬼識幫大家知啦，因為咱這種啊大選啊來了啦吼，啊，你有啥物好話愛甲伊個老人答無？哦，嚇，你答福建話無？
我答福建話，聽起參啦
，OK，使。啊，來，
這我想是講，這種大選正是唔對啦。真係老人，新加坡真係老人。你這種咱即個 COVID-19 真正危險。我哋唔想講，即係種那個老人，若是大選，攏總就要行去一個部位去落票。所以我真煩惱，若是安尼找人去。無定到即COVID-19會傳人掉嚇，對啦，你講咧有理由啦，做人都無變啦，一定人愛。我跟人講哦，我喺 Facebook 有寫了講，即款人就小心淡薄，咱個人老人頭先啊，
無遇到老人會好啦，嗬，危險嗬。
所以這條就比較細緻啦。所以我跟那些老人講，大龍。你去啊照顧，你就停這個 mask，
保護家己啦。
是。所以我這條我是跟你講啦，小心淡薄咯，無變樣，咱特別投算。咱能知道新加坡別國家無像，即陣新加坡投算攏總特別投算，咱落是安尼是無變哩。
對。
所以這條我是跟你講，都攏較小心淡薄啦。
對，Dr. Tan講了，真正有理由啦吼。大選吼，你人大家知是日子無？伊個日子吼就是7月10號，7月10號吼就是拜5，就是講吼，即種Dr. Tan節目吼，甲大人講，你人愛特別注意，因為老人吼有好聲吼，是着迄個 COVID-19吼，就是食啦了咯吼，對，就是安尼款啦，吼，所以大家愛記得吼，來，這物件愛攞出來先。恁人吼，什麼吼，有攏總袂記，袂要緊啦。
不那個順了不咪？
冚唪唥唔記得都唔緊要啦。最重要咧，上車咧就是記得吼，有人即個 PSP 就是即張野球啦吼，即張野球，恁人去投票的時候，愛記得吼，要選我們這個顏色吼，大家莫袂記吼。恁若去大選的時哈，投票的時候，就是愛經咱人即張野球吼，這個上車了啦。恁伊個即個野球吼，恁幫咱吼有可能吼，咱下入Parliament啦吼，就是安尼款。OK，所以大家莫袂記吼，感謝大家。
OK，感謝，
拜拜。
Thank you，感謝，
拜拜。Wow. Okay, so you guys saw that was the dialect skit that was produced. And of course, that was me truly acting in that skit with Dr. Tan Cheng Bock. And it's been a while since I spoke some Teochew and Hokkien and all these things. But, you know, the beauty of that video is that it reached out to the pioneer generation. And if you notice, Dr. Tan didn't even ask for people to vote for him. He's very concerned for the seniors, asking them to please, because voting is compulsory in Singapore. He asked the seniors, those in the pioneer generation, to please take care of themselves, because there'll be many people, you know, more than 2 million voters in Singapore, and especially those who are 65 and above. There's more than 500,000 of them who will be having to go and make their voting. So we're asking them to please take extra care of yourself when you go and make your when you vote on the polling day, because they are the most vulnerable group, and we don't want anyone, okay, not everyone, because every life is precious. So when they go for the polling day to vote, please take extra good care of yourselves for the senior citizen. 所以咧，大家吼，有好聲嘅老人吼，要特別注意啦吼，愛照顧身體吼，好好聲解無。所以大家吼，真正切要啦，就愛注意這步啦吼。Okay, so without further ado, I would now like to bring on the Secretary General of Progress Singapore Party, Dr. Tan Cheng Bock. And before I do that, actually, can all the panel please switch on your videos first? So at least we know everyone. Can everyone please switch on your videos so I can do a quick introduction so that people know who you are? Okay, can we have all of them, please? Everyone. We still have Hazel. Where's Hazel? Logan and Manwai and all these people. Where are you? Hello. Okay, looks like everyone is here. Logan only is missing, I think. Oh, here he comes on. Okay, so of course, needing no introduction is Dr. Tan Cheng Bock. Everyone knows him, or at least knows what he looks like. That's Dr. Tan Cheng Bock for you. He's on the screen right now. That's Dr. Tan. Followed by, I'd like to introduce to you as well, Manwai. He's the Assistant Secretary General of PSP. Thank you very much there. Nice wave there from Manwai. Third person coming up is the only rose among the sunflowers tonight, and that is the lovely Hazel Pua. Okay, hi Hazel. And the next person coming up is Logan. Okay, let's have Logan on screen. Yes, that's Logan. All right, thank you very much. Next, it will be Jeffrey Koo. Let's have Jeffrey spotlighted. Yes, Jeffrey, very good karaoke singer. You entertain you guys. And last but not least, this is the entire team of West Coast GRC. And this guy is Lim Cho Hong. He is from Pioneer SMC. So these are the people here this evening. They will be telling you a lot more things and giving their rally speeches as well. So can we go back to Dr. Tan Cheng Bock, please, everyone? Okay, so we put Doc on the screen again. Doc, the floor is yours. Say hello to Singapore.
Thank you, Greg. Before I start, I'll tell all of you here. Let me welcome all of you who are attending this session. That clip that you saw was an impromptu one for me, because they saw me and they just ushered me onto the stage and made me speak in Hokkien. I can tell you it was quite scary at first because I've forgotten my Hokkien already. But I think not too bad. For those who are listening in, I'm sure it's the message I wanted to pass to you all is actually my fear that this election could actually start another big spike in this coronavirus. Okay, having said that, I don't want to take for granted that all of you know me well. So I just give you a very brief history of myself so that you have an understanding of where I'm coming from. Well, after I graduated, I'm a medical doctor. I practiced for a long, long time. But last year, I left my medical practice and I decided to enter back into the political arena. Now, I practice in a place called Ama King Village, which is a small village. Villagers are very poor, but I really enjoyed serving them because no matter whether they can pay me or they cannot pay me wasn't very important, but I enjoy looking after them. And after my medical, when I was there, I was actually invited to go into politics, which I reluctantly agreed because my first love has always been medicine and politics is my second love. But having chosen this political path, I stood for election in 1980. And I got elected as the Member of Parliament for Ayer Rajah, which is now part of the West Coast constituency. Well, I served Ayer Rajah for 26 years. And I really enjoyed looking after Ayer Rajah because we had this community spirit that grew over my 26 years as an MP over there. We really introduced many things that were community friendly. We introduced ramps. We built special daycare center for seniors and for young people. But above all, I built the first barrier-free community center for the able, for the disabled. So that community center actually became like the home for the Handicap Welfare Association. And it was a joy to see all these people going into the community, having this easy access to every part of the community. That was what I wanted to do, make it an example for Singaporeans at that period in 1980, that we must always be mindful that there are people who are maybe less fortunate than us, but let them be part of the family. So that is how I look after Ayer Rajah, and I had very, very good support all the six terms that I stood as the Member of Parliament. When I was in Parliament, I tried my best to speak up for the people of Singapore. And among the things I did was, I noticed that people value education. And at that time, the CPF issue came into the picture. And it started to be used for men, like they allow CPF to be used for playing in the stock market, which I objected strongly because I felt that the CPF money should be put to better use. So I proposed that they should use part of the CPF to help the education of the children. Well, it took me quite a while to convince them, but finally they agreed, and the use of CPF was given to all the by the CPF board for those people who want to go to a tertiary, to go for a tertiary education, but just couldn't afford. And we created a special loan scheme for these people. So I was cheered recently when I went to this Tekka market. I met a lady who brought his 2 children to me. I was wondering why she did that. And she told me that if I had not actually mooted this idea of the use of a CPF for education, her 2 children would not have got the tertiary degree. So it's a joy to see all that. Then, of course, I always believe in family together and the importance of community living. So when I noticed during those times, when we are all visiting our parents and our friends, we have to rush, to quickly peel off those, those tickets, your parking tickets. So I thought that imagine on a Sunday, when that's the only day where we have a chance to meet our family members, we are actually constrained by this hourly parking on a holiday. So I fought very hard, and I said, look, let's, for social interaction, let us give one day off free parking on Sundays to allow this better interaction among our people. And it took me a long time, and at first there was a ding-dong battle went on in Parliament. But ultimately, I think they saw what I wanted, and they decided, yes, they gave us free parking on Sunday, and it was like a bonus when they added public holidays. So that's my little contribution there. And also, I remember in Parliament, I was the one who voted against this scheme called the Nominated Member of Parliament. I felt that anyone who wants to be a member of Parliament should go by the proper way. That is to seek a mandate from the people, get elected, and then go into Parliament. I think that is fair, because then you are responsible for the people who voted you in. You just cannot just walk into Parliament, not having been elected, and want to speak for the people. And true enough, my fear that this scheme will ultimately be used by sector of our population, sectarian representation. So all these people who have been represented, wants to get represented, let's say, many organizations, I don't want to name them. But the most interesting thing about this nominated MP was the NTUC. Now, they are all trade unions. There were 9 trade union members there. And yet they want a representation in the House as a nominated MP. I tell you, it was I couldn't understand. I was embarrassed that my government, the Parliament at that time, could allow such a thing to happen. But it happened. So that is the other area which I really wasn't too happy about. And then then I was asked to set up the first town council, one of the first town councils in Singapore. It was a new venture, a new thing for me to work on, and I took it, and I remembered it was a Jurong East Town Council. It was a challenge. We had no guide. We had a few guidelines there as how a town council should be managed. But I remember when I first took on office, by the way, we were paid so little for that, but it was a pleasure being a town council. I wasn't a mayor because I didn't want to hold office, so they made me a chairman. So if you see any town council with chairman, it's me, because I didn't want to accept that post. But the town council actually was a very, very difficult job, but very challenging. And I remembered when I first took office, I said, look, you must get the act correctly. So I make sure I got the right people to manage the financial side of the council, of the town council, because that's very important. We are receiving grants from the government, subvention grants from the government, and the responsibility was really heavy. So I took it upon myself to make sure that the town council was successfully run. And my criteria was not how much money I have in the kitty. My criteria was to make sure that how much I spent per flat. That is very important. That is, you must set criteria. Then you can achieve it well. Then after a while, we set up the CDC, and they made me the chairman of the Southwest CDC. And the Southwest CDC actually covers exactly the zone of West Coast now. So I wasn't only looking after the Ayer Rajah, I was looking after now the area that has been carved out in this current West Coast GRC. So I'm very familiar because I had to comb from one end to the other end every weekend to make sure things are right. So that is the political responsibility I had to take as a town, as a member of parliament then. But there's one issue I stood very firmly, and that was the issue of our Singaporeans losing their jobs at that time. Remember, there was financial crisis and so on. So I insisted that we should think Singaporeans first when getting jobs for when we were in that state, when the PMETs, when the professionals were all losing their jobs to foreigners, and was a little bit upset. So I went to the house, and I remembered when I first said that we should think Singaporean first, I was actually taken to task. It was a very difficult period for me because my belief was shot down by none other than Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, who was very cross with me because he felt that I am not following the party line. And I remember George Yeo was said to take me on in Parliament, and he said, I remembered that I was sending the wrong signals to the foreigners by saying things Singaporean first. But I said, no, you are sending the wrong signal to our people. You're taking the wrong signal to Singaporeans. And I was really, well, I left it at that. And then one day I remembered Mr. Lee Kuan Yew took me to task in one of his community speeches, and he said that I was wrong. And I didn't want, out of respect, I didn't want to debate him again. I stood my ground. I continue to champion this thing Singaporean first. And until the day I left Parliament, I stood my ground. So with that little introduction of myself, I decided that I will leave the floor to the members of my team. But before I do that, let me just briefly tell you that these people came forward to join me out of the passion to want to do something for this country. And that's my criteria. I always say, if the heart is in the right place, you join me. If you really have other ulterior motive, one day it will be found out, and you have to part company. And with all this criteria, I look for good people. Some with very good degrees, I didn't take them. Not because they are not qualified, because I know they are not willing to serve you all. They had other motive. But for these people who have come to join me, I know the sacrifices they have made. So please give them the support in this coming January election. I think they will make Singapore proud. So Greg, back to you.
Right, thank you very much there. That was the one and the only Dr. Tan Cheng Bock. Wow, so you all know, you see, time and history has shown, right? He was correct, right? To put Singaporeans first, right? And he was punished, he was whacked, walloped, and all these things, you know. So today, you are vindicated, Doc. Singaporeans love you for that. And the next thing I want to do now is, can we please play the video for Man Wai, please? So that after that, he will have the floor.
When I was a child, my ambition was that when I grow up, I will make poverty disappear from Singapore. I had a really good run in my career. It's give back time. This is Chinatown. This is the place where I was brought up. I was actually born there, exactly that location. Chinatown today, of course, is a changed place. I remember Chinatown to be a place that's very poor, but nevertheless, it is a place where I found a lot of love and compassion. Among my neighbors, there were many Samsui women. These are the women who came to Singapore when they were young and worked in the construction industry in Singapore. But when they become my neighbor, they were already 80 years old. They can't work in the construction industry anymore. Every day at 5 o'clock in the morning, they deshelled prawn. And for a whole morning work of 5 hours, They were paid only 50 cents at that time when we were in need. These are the women who took out their meager savings to help my family. So even when I was a child, I told myself I will make poverty disappear from Singapore. Little did I expect that this poor boy from Chinatown would be catapulted into the world of high finance. I was first given a scholarship to study in Japan. Upon my return, I was posted to Government of Singapore Investment Corporation to be a junior member of the team that manages the huge national reserves of our country. Then I went overseas and worked for a number of investment banks before I came back to Singapore to become the managing director of OCBC Security. So I had a good run in my career. I was lucky. But when I look around Singapore, I still found poverty. Singaporeans are struggling financially and good jobs are hard to come by. I must give back to society. I must voice the concerns, my concerns. I must help to ensure the future generation of Singaporeans will enjoy the same opportunities as I have. Joining politics in Singapore is a very difficult thing. But if there's something to be done, I want to do it. Many years down the road, on my deathbed, I don't want to have any regrets. I want to be able to say that I've done my best. We want transparency, independence, and accountability in our political system. That is the belief that we're fighting for country, for people. Give Progress Singapore Party and I a chance.
Wow. They will give you more than a chance. They will vote all you guys into Parliament and you all march in with Dr. Tan Cheng Bock after the 10th of July. Okay, Man Wai, he's, by the way, in case you don't know, he's the Assistant Sec Gen of PSP. The floor is yours. Say hello to Singapore.
Hello, voters of the West Coast GRC. Thank you for coming tonight. Dear voters of the West Coast GRC, good night to you. From our campaign, we hope you see in us a credible and trustable team to serve you in the next 5 years. We may not be with you in the last 5 years, but we will be with you every week in the next 5 years to understand and solve your problems promptly. And we will have 100% attendance in Parliament to represent you. Our team is lucky to have Dr. Tan Cheng Bock as our mentor. It takes only 4 years to earn a degree, but a lifetime to build up the trust and credibility through dedication and sacrifices. And that is Dr. Tan Cheng Bock. At 80, Dr. Tan still enjoys good health because his spirit is high and his conscience is clear. Because his heart is always with the people, many ideas that he has suggested a long time ago are still relevant today. We also hope you can appreciate the proven track record that the other 4 of us bring to West Coast to serve you. Unlike most of the PAP's candidates, we have sharpened our skills and judgment in the private sector. After all, the private sector is the one that generates the real value in the economy. The public sector is important, but should remain primarily a facilitator. It is the PAP government over-involvement in the economy that has led to its low productivity and low wages. Not only the PAP's leaders are mainly from the public sector, increasingly, they are also from the military. So we have a national leadership that has little experience in the running of the economy and society. Our team is ready to serve you with our expertise accumulated from our private sector careers. We hope to inject a breath of fresh air into the management of our town council. The most important element in public sector management is not hardware, like building another grand project. It is about software and hardware. For example, at the Pioneer Mall, I noticed, how can you expect the hawker center to serve the people well when the government decides to put it under the management of Kofu, a private company which also runs a food court under the hawker center? Or for example, putting elevators in the wrong location at the otherwise well-built multi-story car parks. Or the incumbent MP failing for years to build a short sheltered walkway to a primary school, which will not cost more than a few $10,000 at the most. And why not more resources are poured into the renewing of the old Boon Lay flats? There are many such seemingly little but very helpful things for the residents. If done promptly, will be far more beneficial to them than another grand project. Our team aims to change the West Coast into a model of ground-up community development with a lot of hardware, the heart. Logan will focus on the management of the West Coast Town Council, Hazel on the development of the younger generation, Jeffrey on the welfare of the older generation, and I on the development of startup ventures to create more opportunities for our West Coast residents. At the national level, we are recommending policies that are totally different from those of the PAP government, because we are tackling the very problems created by them. It is puzzling to us why we were accused of lacking in policies when we have recommended quite a few. To show you 5 examples, we recommended cut back on foreign talents, but government said new carrots must be offered to renegotiate the free trade agreement. Where is our sovereignty? We recommended CPF withdrawals at 55 years old because it's our money, but PAP say no, because you will squander the money away. We recommended en bloc for all existing HDB flats because we are concerned that the property market may collapse if the prices of the old flats decline rapidly. PAP have no concrete solutions yet for all these. We recommended all healthcare insurance premiums, like MediShield Life, to be paid by the government, so that our retirement can have more money, and also to encourage the government to really rein in the high healthcare cost. But the government is more concerned with how to bring in another scheme called CareShield, and then tax our CPF account further. We recommended a standard minimum living wage, which can be administered with human dignity in mind. But PAP sticks to its targeted approach, which is demeaning to the people. So our recommendations are all concrete policies. It is a government that is only doing more of the same, devoid of new ideas. We think we have both the credibility and the concrete policies, and you will be our final judge and not the PAP. However, please do not let fear interfere with your judgment, because it is unwarranted. First, do not worry about the vote being traced back to you. Every step of the voting and counting process is robust. And there are polling agents and counting agents from all contesting parties to monitor each step. After your vote is put into the ballot box, there's no way the vote can be traced back to you. However, it's done on a polling precinct by precinct basis. It is possible for the contesting parties, including the PAP, to know where and which polling precinct is more pro-government or pro-alternative. But each polling precinct has about 3,000 voters, so there's no way to trace back to you again. Secondly, also do not worry about a freak election result with the PAP voted out of power. After polling day, PAP is still going to be the next government. The PAP currently has a supermajority of 93% of the seats in parliament. The PAP only needs 67% of the seats to continue to rule with absolute power, to change the constitution at will. If the alternative camp can win at least 34% of the seat in parliament, then it can deny the PAP of that power. And that will be 32 seats in the new parliament. So you can have the best of both worlds, a strong PAP government and a strong alternative voice. There is no trade-off. And don't fall for the government claim that having 12 non-constituency MPs is good enough. It is not. They are not full MPs. So don't shortchange yourself. You deserve better. Vote for us. Vote for Progress Singapore, for country, for people. Thank you. Back to you, Craig.
Wow, Manwai, power lah. That's, you just really hit the nail on the head there, you know, because a lot of people are still, until today, still wonder, is my vote secret? What happens if I work for the government? If I go and vote for the alternative parties, will my career stall? Is it game over for me? So those are all the silly concerns. So you can put that all to rest. Manwai has told you everything is secret. No worries about the vote, okay? It is totally secret. And vote with confidence. Not vote wisely, but not only wisely, but vote with confidence. Okay, the next person I'd like to bring on is Hazel Phua, who is Vice Chairman of PSP. Can we play her video, please? Thank you.
My name is Hazel. I actually started off my career in the civil service in the Public Service Division under the Prime Minister's Office, and then moved on to Ministry of Finance. I have always been very interested in education. Even when I was holding a full-time job, I would give one-to-one home tuition, and I really enjoyed that process. And I enjoyed it when I'm able to help them understand and see their self-confidence grow as a result of that. So I decided to make my passion my job, and I started my first education center. I think I am drawn to public service. But as I participate in the general election in 2011, we went campaigning, and during the course of the campaigning, we have people opening up to us, telling us about their life stories in a way that they would never open up to a stranger. I think these were people who have tried other avenues, but were not able to receive the help that they need. So when we offered ourselves as alternatives, they approached us and told us their problems, hoping that we can help them. And I really wanted to help these people who were not getting their voices heard. I really want to be the channel where their circumstances, their problems can come to light and solutions can be found. My name is Hazel. I actually started.
All right, Hazel, the floor is yours. Say hello to Singapore.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Hazel Phua. I have prepared a presentation slide, so please give me a few seconds to share my screen. Okay. Now, I have been in the past week talking to a lot of the residents in West Coast GRC, and I find that the most often voiced concern is actually CPF, and also the fact that, or rather the feeling that the government is not taking care of Singaporeans that need help, but instead taking better care of foreign workers. And it's obvious to me that the level of financial anxiety is high. So tonight, I would like to touch on inequality and CPF. Now, over here, this table shows the average, the increase in the average monthly household income from work per household member. So this is the percentage increase from the year 2009 to 2019. So you can see from this table that everything looks fine. You know, the lower end, the percentage increase is moving on par with the middle. And in fact, the highest 10% is actually has the lowest percentage increase. And therefore, there was earlier this year, we had a few newspaper articles celebrating the fact that we have the lowest inequality in 18 years. And it was mentioned that if this trend continues, then inequality gap would narrow. But the percentage only tells half the story. Let's take a look at the absolute numbers instead of percentages. Now this chart shows you the absolute increase in household monthly income from work per member, and you can see that for the lowest 10%, the increase over 10 years is only $240, whereas for the highest 10% is actually $4,792. So therefore, you can see that even though in percentage-wise, it looks okay, but when you look at absolute dollars, you can see that the gap is actually widening. I don't call this catching up. And this is actually only income from work. It does not include investment income such as dividend from shares and perhaps rental income from property investments. And you can imagine that the highest 10% household would be more likely to have such investments as compared to the lowest 10%. And therefore, if we take into account investment income, the gap is even wider. Now, there are measures that the government can take to narrow the gap. For example, we progressive taxes structure where we tax the higher income higher than the lower income, and then we distribute the tax revenue to the people in the form of government subsidies. However, let's take a look at our tax system over the years. Now, two of the highest contributor to government revenue is actually our income tax and our GST. Now, over here, I have the corporate income tax rate over the years. Now, income taxes are progressive in the sense that the higher income pay a higher rate of tax as compared to the lower income. So in 1987, the income tax rate was 33%, and it gradually reduced until in 2010, it has dropped to 17%, half of its former level in 1987. And conversely, comparing that to GST, which is regressive, meaning that the lower income actually ends up paying a higher percentage of their salary to this tax as compared to the higher income. The reason for that is because even though we're all paying the same rate of GST at 7%, but the lower income tends to spend all of their income, or sometimes even more than their income, on consumption, whereas the higher income can afford to set aside a certain amount for savings. So the rate, so they don't pay GST on the savings, they only pay GST on the consumption, and that makes it a lower percentage of their income. Okay, and you can see that we're increasing it from 3% when it was introduced in 1994 to 7% now, and there are plans to increase it to 9% subsequently at a date that has not yet been decided. Now, the reason why our corporate tax corporate income tax can be reduced so significantly is because of the introduction of the GST. And therefore, you see that there is this deliberate move from a more progressive tax system towards a more regressive tax system. In addition, we have the estate duty being abolished in 2008. Now, estate duty is a duty that is imposed on those in the highest, the most well-off in society. And therefore, we find ourselves in the bottom 10 of the Oxford Index on government efforts to tackle inequality. They ranked about over 150 countries, and we're in the bottom 10 in terms of the government's effort to reduce inequality. And here we see a comparison of the Gini coefficients by different countries. Okay, here's Singapore. Before government taxes, our Gini coefficient, which is a measure of inequality in the society, is at 0.437, and after government transfers, it reduces to 0.381, less inequality after government transfers. But compare it with other countries, like for example, UK, you can see that the effort made by the government has decreased the inequality by a lot more than what is happening in Singapore. Similarly, in Australia and in Japan and USA as well, even though the inequality is higher, but their government is also doing more to reduce inequality. And therefore, PSP proposes to reduce inequality by building a stronger social safety net. This will come in the form of more government subsidies for the needy and also those who may be unemployed due to, for example, the COVID crisis. And we're also proposing more subsidies for healthcare, for example, that the Medishield Life premiums be paid by government. We're saying no to a GST increase, and we would like basic necessities to be exempted from GST. This will make the GST a bit more progressive. And when we have, when our economy has stabilized, once we get over this COVID economic crisis, we would like to push for a living wage, which is that anybody who takes on a full-time job should be able to earn enough to be able to live with dignity. Now, I'm moving next to CPF. During my conversations with residents, I find that a lot of them are concerned about CPF. Firstly, they're upset about the broken promise of withdrawal at 55. And a lot of them are also very upset that they are because CPF is their own savings, so they're upset that they cannot use their own savings when they're already facing financial difficulties now. One of the things that PSP is proposing is actually for a higher withdrawal at the age of 55 for now. But this is a work in progress for us. We would like to explore more ways for greater flexibility in the use of CPF funds. For example, one of the things that we're still discussing is actually whether people can be allowed to borrow from their CPF accounts when they are unemployed or otherwise in difficulties. In the same way that when you have an insurance policy, you can actually borrow against your insurance policy. And so our work here is not yet done. In fact, for all policy areas, our position is that our work is never done. Policies are always a work in progress, whether election is here or not. And we welcome any feedback. Now, as opposition in Parliament, one of our roles will be to listen to you and to bring your concerns into Parliament. If you vote for PSP, we will work to ensure that your needs are better met. And to build a more caring and compassionate community within our constituencies. Thank you.
Thank you very much there, Hazel. Wow, impressive figures, huh? Because she's a maths wizard. And figures sure don't lie, right? So I hope you've been enlightened, and those who like to crunch numbers, can ask Hazel for her slides. Okay, thank you very much there. The next person from the panel from West Coast GRC is Logan. Can we play the video for Logan, please, before he let him have the floor? Thank you.
No one likes to be a politician. They fear or they are shy. I am forced to become a politician for my children's future because I find that things are not correct. Hi, my name is Loganathan. I'm a training consultant. I joined the SAF right after my A-levels and worked my way up. 25 years of service, the SAF identified me and sent me to do 2 master's programs. Today's world is different from my days. I've got 3 girls. They are all graduating or graduated. I'm concerned whether they will get the right job as graduates. Many of our children today become Grab delivery, Grab drivers and all that with good qualifications. And then here the government will say that, oh, we don't have enough people to do the correct jobs. That means our education system is not preparing them for the employment. Policies are really stretching everyone from left to right. Education, housing costs, employment, CPF. How are we going to look after our next 20 years? We can still make our life better for your children's future. We need to change today. A strong opposition who can voice out your concerns. I hope you can give me your support. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you very much there. That was the video on Logan. And Logan, the floor is yours. Say hello to Singapore.
Warm evening to all our West Coast voters. Thank you for coming this evening. Today I'm going to present the topic on everyone's mind. Do you really think the government will let foreigners steal Singaporean jobs? So after my presentation, you will decide whether what PSP has been advocating about. Now, what is this SICA that everyone is fussing about? It's basically a free trade agreement with India. SICA stands for Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement. It simply is nothing but FTA, free trade agreement, and has no taxes on imports from India, and likewise for them. It also guarantees entry and stay for each other citizens between 2 months to 3 years. However, it does not guarantee a PR or citizenship, and it does not guarantee you a job either. People who want to work in Singapore must apply directly to the companies, or they can be transferred via their MNCs. Lately, PSP mentioned or claimed that it was the government-linked companies that benefited more than the SMEs. And this was refuted by the PAP government. Now, I'm going to show you some evidence of the fact that we were actually where our source was from. Last year, there was a pre-budget meeting co-chaired by President of the Institute of Singapore Chartered Accounts, Mr. Koh Yin Tiong, and Chairman of the Government Parliamentary Committee for Finance and Trade and Industry, Mr. Liang Ing-Wah, at the Intercontinental Singapore on the 9th of January 2019. Now, the following day, the newspapers carried it, our Straits Times, dated January 10, 2019. I'm going to read to you exactly what was printed on the newspaper. While Singapore has signed several free trade agreements over the years, one group of businesses seems to be having difficulties reaping their benefits: small and medium-sized enterprises. To help them, companies could hunt in a bag with larger businesses such as multinationals given incentives to work with smaller firms from non-competing sectors. Leading the way to enter new markets, industry leaders said at the roundtable discussion yesterday ahead of Singapore's budget on February the 18th. A lot of the FTAs and high-level government-to-government contracts that get signed seldom filter down to the SME level, and they normally stay at maybe the government-linked company level, said Mr. Ang, Vice President of the membership of the Association of Small and Medium Enterprises. So now we have this evidence that shows very clearly that the SMEs do not benefit from such trade agreement. Now let me carry on. What does it mean by no taxes or import? Before I go on to explain about the job implication on the job. So, well, you have no taxes, it's so obvious. Generally, there's a good thing for both countries because it helps the economy. No taxes of foreign imports means cheaper foreign goods for us. Potentially lowest cost of living. Okay. Now, no taxes on our exports too. The goods we produce will have lower end price. More competitively priced goods overseas means more exports and more GDP. So this also gives more choice to our customers. Now I transcend that to jobs. The implications are actually very similar, just that instead of importing goods, we are now importing labor. So what is the cost of living in Singapore versus India? Or in fact, even for Malaysia, Thailand, no matter what. It's just not an India thing, so please don't get me wrong. It is common to any countries that has got lower exchange rate against Singapore dollars. Currently, the exchange rate between Singapore and India works out to about 1:50, for Malaysia 1:3. So you'll find that 350,000 Malaysians travel across to Singapore to work daily, because if they earn 1,000 Sing dollars, it is translated to 3,000 ringgit, and they can live very comfortably in Malaysian GB. So, unless the Indian coming here is coming with their entire family, at least a portion of their salary will be sent back to India to support those back home. So, given the exchange rate and the cheaper cost of living in India, Singapore dollar will be worth a lot more to the foreigner than to the Singaporean. So foreigners will be willing to work for cheaper salaries. It pushes down salaries and reduces jobs for locals if no policies are put in place to protect Singaporeans. Now, what is the government solution? So they came up with this Fair Consideration Framework, FCF. Basically, it tells employers that they must advertise locally and consider all applicants fairly before advertising abroad. So in some way, making employers give jobs to locals before they consider foreigners. But the question is it working? It seems pretty easy to fake, and the government realizes that and said that it would ban companies that are found to be going against the FCF from even employing foreigners. It's not compulsory to pick a local over foreign talent, especially if they can justify that the foreign talent is better than the Singaporean candidate. We, from PSP, we are saying compulsory prioritization of Singaporeans over foreign talent, plus also we must limit the employment and S-pass as well as the work permit. Okay, so what are the benefits? The benefits is we will have less true unemployment where people get employed in the sector they were trained to work in, rather than seeking employment through Grab or whatever else. Make use of our own local talents. Of course, there is downfall. It may be productivity might be lower because you are taking a less skilled local instead of potentially better foreign talent. The question is then, why do we have WDA or Future Skills Program? It's basically the same question that every company will ask. Should I hire a person and then train him, or hire a trained person? Of course, multinational companies, government companies, they got money. So they will rather hire people who are trained. But SMEs don't have that kind of fund, right? So they will come to the next part. So cost of running businesses will likely increase because foreign talent cannot push down the wages. So in this situation, who gains? Those unemployed due to foreigners being employed in positions they are suitable for. And who loses? The firms and the businesses, because cost of wages increases, plus obviously the foreign talent whom will have to settle for jobs in their own country. So minimizing the firm's losses, we will logically see, and by basic economics, if production cost goes up, the firm is going to increase the price of goods that they are selling. This means that the losses are shifted from the firm to the consumers, meaning us. That will drive the cost of living. But the government introduces policies to help the SMEs, and by increasing the providing the cash or supporting them with the funding, then you'll find that they will help to alleviate the cost or reduce the cost of the products. Okay. So they must put in some policies to help the SMEs. So we in PSP have said this in our manifesto. First, priority to be given to the public sector, contracts from government sector to be given to SMEs rather than large companies. This is the same conclusion that it was given during the last year's meeting. They also need to invest into local SMEs. Encourage cooperations among SMEs. This will help to get contracts and jobs that can be handled by the SMEs. They can also provide direct support to SMEs to restructure their businesses and expand abroad. They will certainly reduce business costs in many other ways. So now you understand why we claim that we have to put in some policies with regards to managing our workforce, especially with foreign talents. So in conclusion, let me tell you all something. Mr. Lee Kuan Yew once said, there will come a time when eventually the public will say, look, let's try the other side, either because the PAP has declined in quality or the opposition has put a team equal to the PAP. And they say, let's try the other side. That day will come. And that day happens to be 10th of July, 2020. Vote for Progress Singapore Party, for people, for country. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much there, Logan. The time has come, which is this coming Friday. We can change history. Okay, without further ado, I'd like to please put on the video for Jeffrey Koo, who is the last member in West Coast GRC to be featured at the moment. Video, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Koo. I'm an agriculture professional and a botanist. And in my free time, I like to sing. One thing I learned about plantation management is that you need to have compassion. Compassion for the people, the natives, and the local people that live around the plantation because they are part of that ecosystem. The success of a country, likewise the success, I would say, of a plantation, is the same, right? You need to have a situation where all parties are well taken care of, and therefore we can grow together. It cannot be a silo kind of situation where you have only the plantation successfully growing and the people surrounding them not leveling up and not being successful or equally as successful as the plantation owners. Compassion would be the driving force in everything that we do at PSP. We are here to serve. We are not here to be served. We have committed ourselves to bring out a better Singapore for all of us. For the people, for Singapore. We will leave no one behind. Friends have asked me, are you fearful? I would say yes. But as in life, even if you have fear, you have to do what is right. Support us, and we will show you how different we are in giving Singaporeans a better life.
Thank you, Jeffrey. The floor is yours. Say hello to Singapore and especially the voters in West Coast GRC.
Hello, Singapore and voters of West Coast GRC. I'm Jeffrey Koo. I'm part of this wonderful team of PSP colleagues that have come to West Coast to serve you. Now, as you can see, I like to sing. I'm a little bit more animatic in the way I approach things and also more emotional in the way I approach things. So let me not sing a song to you, but let me tell you a story. Shall we start with that? Let me tell you a story, a real story actually, right? So I have a friend about 5 years ago. Let's call him Mike, okay? Because it's better to keep their names private. Mike is a close friend of mine. He passed away from lung cancer a number of years ago, about 5, I believe, right? So during his last years, he kept it a secret that, he was struggling with a terminal disease. It's only towards the very end that he told us, his friends. Now, what basically he wanted to do was to leave a legacy for his son. So he started to work very hard, such that even he didn't spend money on his medical treatment. And what did he do it for? He did it to actually channel all that money to his son, Tony, for his son's degree education. So eventually, Tony graduated with honors in marketing. And Mike died soon after, actually in a hospice in Johor. Now, every now and then I'll give Tony a call and see how he is. So following graduation, Tony managed to secure a job. Quickly rose up the ranks like many of us in the corporate world. However, due to some corporate restructuring, unfortunately, he was replaced by, what? Of course, a foreign talent, right? And has been literally out of the streets for the past 2 years. Now, to make ends meet, Tony decided, I don't think decided might be the right word, but had no choice but to be a Grab driver while continuing to search for another suitable job. Well, things did not turn out the way he wanted, right? He's now single, intelligent guy, 40. And you know what? As I sit now talking to you, he is actually on the streets now, right? He continues to grind, as a Grab driver, in spite of sending out, countless job applications. I'm sure many of you have experienced that. 50, 100 job applications with futile replies. And this was also before COVID-19. Now, no, Tony never talked about his situation, in a lot of details. I knew that he was struggling to make ends meet, driving 16-hour days, and barely making and covering some of his expenses. So I asked him, every time I meet him for coffee, why do you continue to drive? And he always tells me with a heavy heart that, what to do? I have to pay the bills. Don't drive, no money, don't eat. How to pay? I have a choice. Now we're talking about a graduate here, right? Someone who really went all out to get a piece of paper. Now, during our catch-ups, he would share with me his struggles as a driver, long hours, back pain, sometimes nasty passengers. And to top it off, I think, he's been driving a lot of foreign talents from the condos and wherever to their workplace, all with a smile. Now, despite all these circumstances, Tony remains courteous, friendly to all his passengers. And through this conversation with his passengers, he realized he could easily be one who could work for the same job, actually, instead of these foreign talents. So on many occasions, this is the irony, even provides professional advice to them. This hurts. Now, with COVID-19, things, well, I think all of you know, have gotten a lot worse, right? It'll be harder to find a job. So I could sense his desperation, his silent cry for help. Now, over the past few years, I had a chance to chit-chat, talk to many PMETs, such as Tony, tasted success in the corporate world, senior managers and directors, replaced, fell off, never be able to get back to the senior positions they held. This is quite traumatic. Oh, did I forget to tell you that this friend of mine, Tony, is still today proud to be a Singaporean, honored to have served his national service, and told me many times, this is home, I'm staying here until I die. So what have I to tell you? Be kind to Tony and the many other older PMETs who have fallen through the cracks, struggling to keep afloat. Hell, there are some people in authority and argue and say that, Singaporean first policy, not good for our country. Tell that to Tony. Tell that to all the PMETs that have fallen off. Tell it to them. See what they say. I joined PSP precisely for this reason. We need to protect our own, provide them good quality jobs. Just not only jobs, but good quality jobs. It is not just about unemployment we are facing. We are talking about underemployment, where qualified Singaporeans have to take up jobs that are below their experience and qualification. Therefore, I do hope you give us your vote. We will fight tooth and nail for every one of these PMETs that have lost their jobs because they deserve more. You deserve more. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. That is a most uplifting story. I mean, of someone who is really fallen through the cracks and had a tough time. And just spare me this 1 or 2 minutes because a lot of Singaporeans, because Dr. Tan Meng Wah, who's from Choa Chu Kang GRC, he mentioned that a lot of Singaporeans or the current government has painted the impression that a lot of these problems that we are facing is because of COVID-19. But that's totally not true. These were policies, bad policies that were put in place that caused all these kind of situations that are happening today. COVID only happened in the last 3 months, you know, right? So how did all these things happen? This happened because of bad policies from the past. So as a result, they're using COVID as an excuse why all these things have happened. But it's not because of COVID. COVID is just the excuse. And I think Singaporeans should wake up to that fact, that this was from policies put in place 10, 15, 20 years ago that caused all these kind of problems where a lot of our PMETs have lost their jobs. And I'm glad that PSP is stepping up to do something about it. And especially Doc, from so many years ago, tell them to put Singaporean first, but they don't want to listen. And he cannot tekan some more, okay? So now, Doc, you can go and tekan them back. Okay, before we end, I'd just like to bring on the last speaker for this evening from Pioneer SMC. Can we play his video, please, for Cheh Hong? Thank you.
Out there's a lot of seniors are still working hard just to have a plate on the table to feed themselves. These pioneers have worked so long already, I think they deserve better. Hi, my name is Cheh Hong. I'm a chartered financial consultant, a father of 3. I grew up from a single parents family. Life was not easy. I and my mom and my sis had to live in the one-room rental flats. All of us have to squeeze into the one-bedroom. Boys being boys, when I was young, I also just like my boys, very naughty at times. Of course, it will make my mom very angry. When I grew up, I thought that it's important that I must pay back to my mom. A lot of seniors, they are unable to leave this world happily. The reason is very simple. They do not have the money if they want to die. They do not have enough income to even retire. This is very bad. Things have to change. We need to have the courage really to stand up to fight for the rights of the people. I do hope that you all can put the trust in PSP. Please give me your strongest support. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the video on Cheh Hong. The floor is yours. Say hello to the people in Pioneer SMC.
Hi everybody. Good evening, Pioneer residents. 晚安先期单选区居民. Selamat datang. Walai barakatuh. Some of the plans we had highlighted by my fellow FESCO colleague earlier. However, I will go through briefly as it is relevant to Pioneer SMC. Over the past 1 week, I received many feedbacks from the residents. There's a lot of work to be done at Pioneer. Some are more urgent than the other, but rest assured, I will look into all your feedback and work with you to come up with the best possible solution. Some were asking me about some specific plans for Pioneer residents. However, what plans are going to come out is just a dream. My West Coast GRC team and I need to be voted into Parliament before any changes can take place. Your precious vote is important to us. We are the underdog here. So every vote counts. Please vote wisely. The demographic for Pioneer SMCs is very unique. We have many PRs and foreigners living here. We have lost our Singaporean identity. This has to be stopped. If I'm elected a member of Parliament, I'll voice out in Parliament to set a quota for the number of PRs and foreigners staying in Pioneer, similar to that of Hdb racial quota. For citizens and spouses who are PR or foreigners, we allow them to convert to citizen as long as they do not have any adverse record. Next, in terms of jobs for Singaporean, in our manifesto, we highlighted that we would like to introduce employment pass quota, lower quota for S-passes and work permit. We believe this will create more job opportunities for Singaporeans. We will review the free trade agreement for SICA. We believe that the reduction of the dependence of foreign labor, it will reduce our concession problem, like one of the residents, Lina, was asking, social strain and depressed wages. We have to move towards a high value added and high wages model. We need to have a stronger social safety net to take care of vulnerable citizens. For those that are unemployed due to the COVID-19, we will need to improve our financial assistance for this group of people and possibly doubling our ComCare payout. I personally would like to champion for unemployment insurance that is fully financed by our government. As for CPF, Hazel did mention, withdrawal of 50,000 at the age of 55, regardless of whether they meet the minimum sum scheme. Of course, again, this is in work on progress. We have to freeze all taxes and fee increases for the next 5 years. There should not be any GST for basic necessities, because these are the things that we need on the day-to-day life, right? So in place, I will be championing higher tax for luxurious items. As a young parent myself, I do understand the heavy responsibility that you are going through. I'll be championing policies to offset some of the living costs of raising child from age 0 to 10 years old on a monthly basis. Likewise, for seniors, I'll be championing policies to supplement your retirement needs. Pioneer SMCs belong to all of you. You must have a say in how you would like to see the development in Pioneer. There will be constant dialogue sessions to gather feedback from you to make Pioneer a better place to live in. When I am elected, I will take over the Town Council and run it effectively. I hear many feedbacks during my walkabout, and I will be working with you and my team to come up with the best possible solution to make Pioneer a better place to live in. There will be more activities being organized for different age groups, be it young or old, to bring back the kampung spirit at Pioneer. I'm planning to set up more daycare centers for our seniors and student care center in Pioneer. I look forward to serving all of you. PAP has failed us and has given many empty promises. Your MP has left you. Nothing has changed for Pioneer residents. You deserve better. I repeat what I said earlier. You have to vote for us into Parliament before you can see any changes. Please do not live with regret for another 5 years. Vote PSP, a credible alternative party for country, for people. Thank you. 谢谢. Terima kasih. Nandri. Back to you, Craig.
Thank you very much there, Chia Hong. All right, folks, you guys have spoken your mind, and Singapore has heard you, in particular West Coast SMC voters and Pioneer SMC, so West Coast GRC and Pioneer SMC have heard you loud and clear. And it's important that they choose you guys. So we're going to take some questions now from members of the floor. And one of the questions that's being repeated often enough, but before I pose the questions, I'd just like to welcome once again to all the viewers who are joining us on Zoom webinar and on Facebook Live. And on our panel this evening, we have Secretary General of PSP, that's Dr. Tan Cheng Bok with us. We have the Assistant Secretary General, which is Mr. Leong Man Wai. We have got the Vice Chairman, who is the only rose among the sunflowers tonight, that is Hazel Phua. And following that, we have Logan, who's also a CC member, followed by Jeffrey Koo, who loves to karaoke in his spare time. And last but not least, Chia Hong, who is the SMC candidate for PSP in Pioneer. Okay, folks, just first, one of the questions that's been popping up quite a bit, which Dr. Tan Cheng Bok has spoken about earlier, is, residents are like, you guys can take care of the town councils? Really? Can or not? I think that is a done deal, right, Doc, where you're concerned. Would you like to answer that question, Dr. Tan Cheng Bok, please?
I think there shouldn't be any problem running town councils. I think when you run town councils currently, you must have the system correct. So we are quite blessed that we have people who can get the whole act together, meaning we will have our own computer system. And to get this computer system, we are quite blessed. We got Harish in our team. Harish is a really well-known expert in computers. He can design the whole computer system for us in a very short time. And in the field of the management proper, we got to have good people to run the town council, which which is a concern of many residents, and I agree that concern is genuine. So what do? I make sure that before we actually join this general election, I went around searching for people who are very capable. So amongst those I have managed to convince was some of the old people who actually helped me to run the town councils. I have my former GM of the town council who will come out to help me. But he or she will bring up with her younger people who are currently serving in the building industry and the management of buildings and condominiums. So you can be rest assured that we will run a town council that you'll be really proud of. And there are certain criteria that I want to set, which I think from my experience as a corporate chairman, looking after companies, I know my requirements are very strict. There's one thing I'm toying with and I'm considering very seriously, is if I can get as many members from within our GRC to come and help us to run the town council, that is even better. Because there's a feeling of ownership of the town council, and because this feeling of town councilship, I think they would do a much better job. And I would prefer also to take in the employees of the town council from amongst our own people in West Coast GRC. So I will rest assure you that you need not worry. We are a very tightly knit political party now, and we will be able to not only manage the town council, we will also look into other areas of needs, especially all these old buildings that I see around here. At least we can give them the government or those who are in charge inputs on how to better the town. We should be making it more friendly, more barrier-free. There will be, we should make sure that the elderly, because I know there are certain parts of our town are very, very old people. We shall make it a friendly access for them. Then, of course, there are certain areas, honestly, we can't do because there's a master plan that will tell you what we intend to do. So sometimes I think our opponents will come up with grandiose plans about what they want to do, and they ask us, can you do it? I honestly tell them, we can't, because first, we are not elected yet into parliament. But to be honest, all these plans that they show to you are actually plans from the URA and given to them at this moment, just before election, telling them, oh, we'll improve this market, we'll do this, we'll do that. But let me tell you, this is not the money that comes from the political party, because these are huge projects. They are actually your money, our money. And therefore, you must understand that all the plans that are revealed to you at this juncture are actually plans conceived not by the political party, but actually by URA. But it's their luck that they are in charge of the constituency, and they can claim credit. So just be a little bit careful when you look at all these plans that's before you, and ask yourself, actually, this is your money. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much there. Thank you very much, Doc. Let me bring up a next question. This is from someone called Yin Shi. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. She says, I'm a first-time voter in West Coast GRC. I'd like to ask 3 questions, if that's okay, for sure. It says, the question number 1, in PSP's manifesto, it's mentioned that the party aims to lower housing costs for young people. I'd like to ask, what does PSP plan to do in order to achieve this? So the first one is, how do we lower housing costs for young people? And number 2, I'd like to know PSP's stance on climate change and global warming. And the third question from Inshu is, the manifesto also mentions relaxing media and arts regulation. Would it be possible to elaborate or be more specific on how that can be done or what plans are set to achieve this? So 3 questions there. Who would like to take on the first question? Anyone from the panel? First question is again, it's mentioned that the party aims to lower housing costs for young people. I'd like to ask, what does PSP plan to do in order to achieve this? So,
Right.
yeah,
Maybe I'll
Hazel?
take that
Yeah, okay, go ahead,
question.
yes.
Yes, right. Under our plans, we are actually planning to peg new HDB flat prices to different income levels. So like, for example, we take 4-room flat as the middle house type. So the price of a 4-room flat, we like to peg it to median income levels, multiple of median income levels. Now, by international standards, if the property is priced at 3 years of income or below, that is considered affordable. So that is the benchmark that we're looking at. Based on existing situations, after there are a lot of government subsidies and grants for housing, for HDB flats. So after deducting of all the grants, on average, the current pricing is about 3.3 times of annual median income. So under our proposal, it will be about 10% lower. And because we are actually concerned about the effect on resale prices as well. If the new flat prices were to be priced too low from what it is now, there will be repercussions on the resale market, which will then impact on existing HDB homeowners. So in trying to balance that, we have to be moderate in our in the reduction. And also for us, I think that our primary focus is that we would like to make it more affordable, to go by the approach of raising wages. It will see if you read our manifesto on economic development, you will see that wage growth is very much the focal point of all our proposals. We want to raise people's wages at the mass level, and then that will make a lot of things very affordable.
Yep, thank you very much there, Hazel. And I know I recall this thing, right? Some years back, right? The real people who benefited from the resale market were those PRs who were then allowed to buy resale HDB flats. They never took up citizenship. Then they bought in, they were allowed to buy resale flats. And after that, they sold it for big profits and they gave up their PRs and went back to their country. So how do Singaporeans benefit? We didn't really benefit, right? Because you're only allowed to buy one HDB flat and you live there till the day you die. And after that, this thing that we're all facing now is, who would like to answer this question on lease decay? Some of them are asking about this lease decay for HDB. How are we going to fix this problem? Because after at the end of 99 years, my flat is worth 0, you know. So anyone from the panel would like to take on this question?
I will answer this also as a continuation of the first question.
Yes.
For the first question is about lowering the HDB prices, which Hazel has explained what is our policy. But when we lower the prices of the new HDB flats, we are also concerned that the that move would affect the prices of the old HDB flats. Okay, so at the same time, for the old HDB flats, we have this 99-year lease decay problem. Okay, so what we are proposing actually is a 2-track solution. One is we are proposing lowering the prices for the new HDB flats. At the same time, for the old HDB flats, we think the government should honor their tacit promise to the Singaporeans that it is an appreciating asset. So at least make sure the assets does not depreciate and especially dropping in price rapidly. So as a result of that, if we keep to that promise, then we would want to propose that we give all existing HDB flats one chance of en bloc development paid by the government. So meaning when a HDB flats reaches a certain age, maybe say more than 50 years old, the HDB flat owner will have the right, to enjoy one en bloc development. There'll be 1-to-1 HDB flat exchange. So that what we are proposing. If that is implemented, what it means to the market is that the old HDB prices will be sustained. Okay, it will not fall very dramatically, and that will shelter or buffer the impact of lowering the prices for the new flats. Because when you lower the prices for the new flat, it will affect the old flats, right? So, but if we introduce this scheme of giving them one en bloc rights, then it will actually shelter the old flats from the impact of the lowering of the prices for the new flats. Okay. At the same time, for the overall economy, this has a lot of implication, because if we don't do that, the HDB lease decay is actually a time bomb, because the whole financial system, the whole market expectation has already factored in the fact that the old HDB flats are also appreciating assets. So if we don't maintain the price, then there will eventually be a collapse, and it will drag down our whole property market. And that will be a very serious problem for our macroeconomic management. So that is what we are proposing. And when we are in Parliament, we'll be pushing the government to a big policy in that direction. Back to you, Craig.
Thank you very much there, Manwai. And I believe one of the panelists who was from Choa Chu Kang, Francis Yuan, was mentioning that land costs should not be put into the pricing of BTO flats, because that factor about 60%. So you don't pay the land, you don't own the land. We are all like lessees of HDB flats. So if that factor was taken out, that will probably reduce a lot of the pricing of new BTO flats as well. So that was something that is good for Singaporeans to know. Okay, we're going to something a bit more local right now. This question is directed at Jeffrey Koo.
Craig.
Yes.
To be fair to Inshi, we have not answered the other two questions.
Yes. Let me get back to her two questions. The second one was about global warming.
Let me answer that question.
Okay.
Oh, yes. That's your area, Jeffrey. Yeah.
Okay, this election came at a time that it shouldn't come. So, it was something that didn't give us a runway in terms of talking about climate change. Now, it's not in our manifesto, but it's something at the top of our minds, at PSP, right? So we have discussed, and we're in the process of discussing with a number of NGOs such as Greenwatching, and we have looked at some of the policies they have, and we've got to try to make sense out of it before we actually firm our own policy behind it. But as all of you know, right, the carbon emissions out of a small country like Singapore is 0.11%. It's not a lot, but yes, of course, as part of this world, we need to do something. It's going to affect the future. Now, there's a lot of talk about the petrochemical industry. I think those that are in this business will know there's a lot of lobbying going on. But what I'm trying to say is this: at the end of the day, we will talk about climate change. We have certain ideals and all that, but a lot of jobs can be affected by it. We've got to be very, very careful of how we craft it. Now, in many countries, we have this Climate Change Act, I think in UK and in New Zealand. And in Singapore, we are not yet there, but we have a national climate change strategy. So as we go about it, as we are now still, hopefully you vote for us into Parliament, and probably in a couple of months' time, we can come up with something that is more, I would say, carefully crafted to make sure that jobs are still protected, particularly in this area. Petrochemical, I mean, we don't have forests and all that, so we can't talk about burning them down, cutting them down and all that, right? So it's mainly in this industry. But what we can do now are the low-hanging fruits, things like, single-use plastics, you can sort of reduction in use, stuff like, not using straws. So all these things we can potentially start doing now. But having said that, give us a bit of time, we'll get that sorted out, hopefully after we enter Parliament, right? Thank you.
Sure, Jeffrey. Yes.
I will add on to that. Okay.
Yes.
The party actually have considered the climate change, and we have some policies pertaining to that. Some of the principles are like alternative energy. We think that solar energy should be developed more in Singapore. We should have a clearer policy towards electric vehicle. Okay, and the general principle we want to approach to climate change is that in line with our general view on we should not be spending money on mega projects. So while we put climate change as one of the most important item on the policy as well, but we are not in favor of spending hundreds of billions of dollars on tackling climate change immediately. We think that we should be tackling the problems from, like a lot of the other policies that we are recommending, a ground-up approach. Okay, first of all, to change our social habits. How do we dispose garbage? Plastics, like what Jeffrey said just now. How do we maintain and improve hygiene in our public places like the hawker center and all that. So all these will contribute to the issue of climate change. And at the same time, it will encourage a kind of social movement, and we can put our budget into better use by incrementally improving our social environment. I stay in Japan many years. You go to Japan, you see how the Japanese maintain their society. All the F&B outlets, they have a lot of business in the night and all that. The next morning, you go to the F&B outlets, just at the back alley, you don't smell anything. That's the standard of maintenance that the Japanese have on their own. So these are the things that while we are tackling climate change, I think we also tackle and encourage our Singaporeans. Together, we make a more civil society. Things are, and all these basically contribute to climate change, okay? And not just talking about big projects all the time. In the same way as what we have explained to our West Coast residents and voters, that we want to make incremental and really those changes that are relevant to you, that will improve your life immediately, rather than grand projects all the time, and making use a lot of our budgets. And those money actually all belongs to us. We should not waste it. So those are some of the principles behind the way we want to tackle climate change. But as Jeffrey has said, the party will come up with even bigger plans on that later on. Yeah. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much there, Manwai. Just to pick up the question, because you were talking about selective en bloc redevelopment scheme, which is now only for selective, right? But PSP is proposing that everyone of the HDB flats should be given to it. So the question from is that who is going to foot the bill? How are you going to pay for this? Would you like to take on that question, Manwai?
Okay. The government right now say that only 4% of the HDB flats will qualify for SIR. Okay. That is because the government, I think, work on the basis that we want to make a lot of money. Okay. So as a result, what the SIRs projects are in place now is because they think that certain people, the private developers wanted it, and they can sell, the whole piece of land to the private developers at a very high price. That's why they SIR the project. Okay. And so the Singapore, the HDB owners in those areas enjoy, getting a new flat, and at the same time, sometimes even some cash payout. Okay. So, but the concept that we are talking about, of course, our fellow Singaporeans have to understand that when it goes to the more outlying estates in Singapore, like maybe say in our West Coast GRC, the land is not as precious as those in the city area. So actually, SIRs is actually difficult under the definition of what the government is doing now. But at the same time, if you look at it, when you do a one
Manwai, you have to unmute yourself. I'm not sure why, but your microphone has been muted. Yes, okay.
Okay, when you are doing a one-to-one exchange, okay, basically the cost that you have to take into consideration is the cost of construction only. Okay, and we know that the cost of construction is actually not that high compared to the market price of the HDB flat. Okay, the whole HDB flat, which factor in a very high component of land cost. Okay, so we estimated that the cost of building or constructing a new HDB unit is only about 100,000 Singapore dollars. Okay, So from that, we can compute, for example, you have 1 million HDB flats outstanding in Singapore, and over the next 30 to 50 years, you slowly en bloc all those HDB flats. And it's only for the old HDB flats, because once we implement the policies, the new HDB flats will be already sold at a lower price. So the new HDB flats will not qualify for these en bloc rights. It is only the existing HDB flats. So the current number of existing HDB flats is about 1.1 million. Okay, so you calculate that over the years, okay, and then you divide and the cost and all that. Basically, is about roughly a $3 billion burden or $3 billion cost on the government budget every year. Okay, but that is on the assumption that you are unable to develop the whole area into something that, apart from building the new HDB flats, you also can develop the surrounding. And if there's some commercial value in the surrounding, then the cost to the budget will be even lower than the $3 billion. Okay? So, but just assume it's $3 billion. Currently, our budget can completely absorb that. That is not a problem, okay? Because the whole budget is about $80 billion. We estimated that we can make some significant savings from the $80 billion because the government budget has been increasing very fast. Usually, from a financial perspective, there's some room for savings in the budget line. Okay, so I think the $3 million, we estimated that the $3 billion a year additional spending for the en bloc development can be absorbed by savings in the current budget. Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you very much. A good explanation. 3 billion is not a drop in the ocean, but it's pretty achievable based on what the Prime Minister has said. They want to spend up to 100 billion over the next few years for climate change, you know. Wow. Okay. Next question is directed at Hazel. I want to ask a question regarding the funding of the healthcare system for Hazel. Given that you have advised against GST increases and GST on basic necessities, what is PSP's solution to funding healthcare, given that we have a rapidly aging society? So, Hazel, the question is directed at you. Specifically, what will PSP propose as a form of revenue for this? Did you get the question?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks for the question. In fact, I think I would like to answer this in the context of, because every time we come out with a proposal, we'll be asked how we intend to finance it. And the way it's being done now is that all the funds are actually all government revenue goes into a consolidated fund, and then which funds all public service. So rather than there's no designated revenue from a particular source will go to a particular area. So I will just answer in general how we will be funding all of our programs in general. Now, firstly, to us it's often a matter of priorities. You have a given budget, and if you feel that this area is important, then you have to cut budget someplace else that is of lower priority. So the first approach would be to find areas in other operating budgets or developmental budgets where we want to cut down to have savings in order to fund these proposals. And secondly, we think that we can make better use of the investment returns from the Sovereign Wealth Fund, which also brings us to the question of how much is enough for our reserves. Although the government has so far refused to tell us how large is our reserves, but if we use the NIRC figures to estimate the size of the reserves, right now NRIC contributions are about 17 billion, which is supposed to be half of the long-term sustainable returns from our reserves. So that makes it 34 billion. And if you assume that they are making about 5% returns, you estimate that the size of the reserve is probably in the region of about 700 billion. And that tells you, and given that government expenditure is about 80 billion a year, that gives you about 9 years of savings, even if the government goes to zero revenue. And I feel that there ought to be a balance between the government's reserves and the household savings. It would be really unfair if the government is so well funded with so much savings and you are still trying to raise more and more funds and more budget surpluses from families when they are in financial difficulties. There is a recent OCBC survey earlier this year which showed that 70% of the respondents had savings that can last them for 6 months or less, and only 30% can last for more than 6 months. So that means that the average is less than 6 months. So you compare that, the household savings of less than 6 months versus government savings of 9 years. And then you are planning to raise GST by 2% to fill up government coffers. That doesn't make sense to me. I feel that there should be a realistic balance between the government savings and the household savings. And so, yeah, that's how we feel about, where this funding is going to come from. We think that we should be spending more on social programs to help families, because right now there really is a great disparity in the financial strength of households versus government.
Thank you, Hazel. Yes, would you like to add on? Yes.
Yeah, I think Hazel really hit the point very well. Okay. Basically, we have large reserves. The government refused to confirm the reserves. Okay, but in a number of sources of information we can get, actually you can already estimate the reserves of our country to be between 700 billion to maybe slightly more than $1 trillion. Okay, so we have the reserves. Although I mean, in the current COVID situation, we are not going to recommend additional new spending and all that, but really to sustain the economy, our SMEs, and also to sustain the livelihood of our people, we still have to spend a lot of money. Okay, so the government should come out actually to confirm the amount of reserves we have. They don't have to confirm the complete amount. Okay, maybe there are certain amounts that is really top strategic secret. But definitely what they've announced in their financial statements and all that, you can already estimate that it's 700 billion to slightly over $1 trillion. And the government should come out and confirm that, and then say that even though we have spent $93 billion, actually $93 billion, they say, is the amount spent on the budget. But the actual amount they draw, okay, from the reserve is only 52 or 53 billion, okay? So actually it's not 90 billion, it's 52 billion. So we've used up 52 billion of our reserves. But actually every year, just now Hazel already quoted, it is the figures are in the budget, that our every year, our net investment income is about 35 billion, the sustainable income. So if we have drawn 52 billion from our reserves, that is still only about 1.5 years of our return, So we didn't really tap on our reserves that much. We still have the reserves. But of course, we, being very hardworking and very sensible Singaporeans, we are not going to recommend that we squander away all the money, okay? But we cannot have the current way of doing things where the government just suck all the money from the and the private sector, the private citizens is so hard, the life, except for the top 10%, 20%. But the government has huge amount of saving. So like Hazel say, huge amount of public sector savings, but the private sector savings, there's also private sector savings, but for 50% of the Singaporeans, we estimated, they don't have savings, don't have much savings, okay? So we have to actually make sure that the government don't suck up so much, so that Singaporeans can have some financial leeway, and stronger citizens and stronger SMEs, we believe, is the foundation of a stronger economy going forward.
and it's not beggar all our citizens, to the extent that they can't really think and strive to have a better life going forward. So if they don't have the time to think, how are they going to contribute to the new economy? Okay, so we think that it's strategically and economically very important for us to address the social problems before we can have a good economic strategy going forward.
Thank you very much there. Next question is directed actually at Logan, because you were talking about SICA. So what plans does PSP have to make sure that it's a more level playing field for Logan, where pertaining to something like SICA, so that we can limit the number of foreign talents that are coming in to take away PMET jobs? Logan, would you like to answer that, take on that question? What do you propose that PSP will do?
Actually, I thought I had mentioned it, but never mind. I will repeat again. Now, we have to review our policies of how we manage that. And I told you earlier in my delivery that there must be quota. If there's no quota,
sorry,
yes.
Sorry, Logan, can you make sure your mic is working? It sounds like Mickey Mouse.
It sounds like you're very far away. Yeah.
Oh, okay, wait now, 1 minute. Let me just.
What happened?
Yeah, you were sounding better just now, but it sounded a bit squeaky here.
You try
Can
again.
you hear me now?
Yeah, it sounds a bit echoey, but it's okay. You can continue. Yeah, okay. No worries.
So basically, what I said earlier, the first thing that we must introduce is the quota system. Because the problem is that the government did not limit companies with quotas. In the past, they used to have quotas, and they used to say, okay, for every 4 or 5 Singaporeans, then you can engage one foreigner. But for the PMETs, they keep telling us that, oh, we don't have the skill set of the locals, and so we have to bring in foreign talent. This, I think, is not fair, because if you look at our education system, we produce almost about 20,000 university graduates a year from our 6 universities and also all the foreign universities in Singapore. So 20,000 graduates graduating every year. In 5 years, we get 100,000. Are you telling me that our graduates can't meet the job requirements? So something is wrong. Either our syllabus at the universities are not correct, or there is something that they want to really bring in cheaper labor. So we must make sure that we have some policies put in place to check and balance this thing.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, for those of you who may have some trouble hearing what Logan was trying to say, because we seem to be having some problems with this microphone, just a quick summary is that there must be a quota put in place. And there must be also something wrong with our universities, because why are we producing, and we are not like some Laoya university, they're world-class universities. Why are our graduates not able to do the jobs that they have to bring in so-called foreign talent to take away the jobs meant for locals? So it's a conundrum that we are in. And I've got a very unique question now, Doc. I think you actually answered it, like you mentioned about it. Someone is asking, right now COVID cases are rising, and again, pertaining to earlier what you said about giving job priority or putting Singaporeans first, right? Again, there's this concern that cases may explode after the GE because of this, this thing insisting on going ahead with the election. So what will you have to say? What can Singaporeans do? It's beyond,
Okay, all right, I'll answer again. I think many of you may have heard what I've said. I've repeated it many a times. I think in the first place, we shouldn't be holding this election because we are in a pandemic. Now, we are all made to believe that the situation has eased because of the community cases have actually come down, and dormitories are also figures also coming down. But in fact, today I saw the community cases are coming up. I think today is 24. It's not a good sign. But having said that, I feel that the main thrust of this COVID-19 election is to control the COVID-19 infection. That is the disease we must control. Because if you cannot control that disease, and don't forget, the world look at not your community infection level. They're looking at a total level. That means the community plus your dormitory level, and that's considered high. And who are the chaps who are looking at us? WHO, all right? All the top medical universities like Johns Hopkins University, okay? And the CDCs in America and so on. Now, they are watching the numbers. And if the numbers are not brought down, what happened? People will not come to Singapore. Investors also fear to come to Singapore. Why? Because there's no confidence. There's no more trust in the government because of this high number. Because borders, remember, were closed. So are the borders opening to us? No, because when they look at our numbers, they fear. So what kind of jobs do you think we are talking about? So the most critical thing in this COVID-19 is to manage your COVID-19 disease. Currently, I believe we are just treating the symptoms. And the symptoms are by way of giving you monetary support here and there, which is, that is, I fear, the wrong angle. And the reason why they call this election, I think, is because they have taken their eye again off the control of this COVID-19. And if you take your eye away from COVID-19, I tell you, with the current global situation, in fact, globalization is fractured now. And also with the US-China unhappy trade relationship. All these will create turmoil in the world. The whole world system is now being disturbed. And if that happens, who is coming here? And the people we are talking, and the government talking about jobs, they are all from the top end down. So now, if the top end down, these people don't want to come to your country, we will be in trouble. What kind of jobs you got to ask ourselves? What kind of jobs coming? That's why we must look at it from a different angle now. We must look at it. How are we going to manage the whole economy in the midst of this COVID-19 in this COVID-19 pandemic? And I still maintain, please keep an eye on this COVID-19 infection, because if that is not controlled, borders will remain close to us. Your supply chain will also be disrupted. Your planes don't come. Your tourists don't come. Where are the jobs? So we can say jobs, we can create jobs with so much money. No. Confidence. And if there's no confidence, they won't come to us. And when there's no confidence, how are we going to look at our economy? So we really must put a lot of attention to COVID-19. That is why from the very beginning, I always say, please don't take your eye off this pandemic. Don't treat it too lightly. Don't let politics come into the way. Their lives are more important. The lives and the livelihood of Singaporeans more important than this election. But we have no choice. We are being pushed to this. It's regrettable. And I really feel sorry that we made this decision to hold this election now. I only pray that the numbers in the community are not going up. If judging by yesterday was 18 community cases, I'm not talking about other cases, and now 24. Be careful. Please pay attention to social distancing. And I must say that even the social distancing is so very hard to control. Look at when I go to go to the market and do my campaigning, they rush to me. And when they rush to me, I worry for them. Look, they're all crowding. They're all shouting. What? So that the ambience is right for the COVID virus. to come and take us. But having said that, we just pray hard that this election has to go on. Although I've already given them earlier what we can do if really the term of office exceeds the April 2021. April 2021, we can always call for a presidential to come and give extension to this present government, because our main concern is lives and livelihood, not just jobs, life and livelihood. So this is where we have to go into Parliament. We have to tell them we want to make sure we want to keep the lives and livelihood of Singaporeans very, very carefully looked after, and you need another pair of eyes. We must be that pair of eyes to go to Parliament and look and watch how they look after this COVID disease. Got to watch, like they said, we got to look after the money that is being taken out from our reserves. There's a lot of money. It belongs to my generation a lot. We took so much pain to save those amount of money. We have to make sure that the money is well spent. And I'm sure this team of mine, when they go into Parliament, they will keep a watchful, very watchful, careful attention to how this money is spent. And that is what we must do as a responsible alternative party. Back to you, Greg.
Right, thank you very much, Doc. Anyone want to add on to that? Because we are almost out of time, but no problem. The floor is yours, Manwai.
Because it's a very, Doc has talked a lot on the medical implications and also the things. But I think there's another angle that's very important, because everybody or the government has always been trying to say that in times of a crisis, go for a pair of steady hands and all that. So I like to actually bring out one angle, and that is this COVID pandemic situation, this crisis is actually very different from all the crises that we have experienced in the past, because we are in a relatively strong financial position. Singapore has a budget surplus every year, okay, since 1971, except for 1985 or 86, where we have one recession. There's a slight budget deficit, but all the time we have budget surpluses. So the government has been accumulating all the surpluses. So as a result, whenever the crisis came about in the past, they only need to throw money at the crisis, and then eventually we get out of it. And of course, the whole world, after 1 or 2 years, eventually will recover. However, this COVID situation is one whereby not only you need to throw money into the problem to solve the problem, but also you must think of how to get out of the problem. And to get out of this problem, actually, you need to rally the whole citizenry. You know, that means all the Singaporeans, and you must show them how to adapt to a new model. Okay, and this is something that actually even the government hasn't tried that before. Okay, it is not something that money alone can solve. You know, they have to, and it hit us at a time when the Singaporeans and the SMEs are relatively weak financially, and we are not in a very strong position. Okay, so as a result, this is a new kind of crisis. We think that rather than besides the government, we think that the government actually need new blood, okay, into Parliament to help them to tackle this crisis together, because this is a whole new game. It is, and from the way the government has handled the COVID situation, I don't think many would agree that they have performed with an A grade. Okay, we won't say they fail, okay, but it is definitely not A grade. So if it's not A grade, then we need to have a new team with new blood that push us back to the A grade. And that probably comes from a range of diverse views other than the group thing that the current government has at the moment.
Yeah, that's my input, Craig. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much there. We're going to extend this till about 10:15. We have 10 more minutes to go. Right now, I would like to give everyone 1 minute to share with all the residents either in Pioneer SMC or West Coast GRC as to why they should vote for you. And starting with the first one from Pioneer SMC, Che Hong, the floor is yours. Please tell the residents in Pioneer SMC why they should vote you into Parliament.
Okay, one of the clear difference between myself and the other candidates is very simple. I am prepared to be a full-time MP once elected. All right, so I don't think a part-time MP really can do a job well, but of course that does not mean that everybody has to be a full-time MP, because I believe that there's people with expertise that can bring across as an MP. But for myself, I'll be committed full-time, and for Pioneer itself, there's a lot of issues that need to be settled. So it's important for me to look into this matter on day-to-day basis and not be one day MPS to solve the thing. So on day-to-day basis, which I communicated to the residents, they can actually come to me on any part of the day that they feel there's some issues that need to be settled. They can come and look for me. There's something to look into. And of course, there are many national issues they are looking at. I can see some of the questions also raising on young parents, the type of thing that cost of living of raising a kid nowadays is not easy. Because myself, I experienced that myself with 3 kids, right? So to elevate this, of course, we do have some plans in mind to help to elevate some of the costs that they have. But of course, some of the things will be more on the social issue because they are more educated nowadays and people with higher aspiration. So these are things that we will look into in detail. We'll cover out better plans to help the residents. And certainly, like what I mentioned earlier, for the seniors, there needs to be more activities to keep them healthy and active in the community. So yeah, that's all I have for my resident for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Che Hong. You sound like you'll be more than full-time. You sound like you'll be overtime. Okay, wonderful. Now, Jeffrey, it's your turn. Jeffrey, your 1 minute starts now.
Hi, everyone. I think that what I want to come across and to tell everyone at the end of the day, we come in as a team. It's just not me, right? So about me, of course, I'm good at marketing. I've got a huge network of corporate friends, and so from that potentially have some jobs for some of our residents here, and of course with relation to business, many years in it, to look at some of the SMEs within West Coast GRC and to grow them, and to repeat the fact that it's a teamwork. It's not just one man. I usually get very irritated when when the impression is given that one person takes care of 30,000 over people in a ward or more, right? It's not real. Together with me, I have entrepreneurs, I have doctors, I have lawyers, and we come together to serve West Coast GRC. And of course, not to mention my GRC teammates, all very esteemed in their own way and successful, to contribute, right? So do vote us in because we are not alone. We come together. PSP has many people, has many talents besides those that you see in front of you now. And we can serve you a lot better this way. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Jeffrey, that was Jeffrey Koo. The next person, you have the floor. Logan, I hope your sound system has improved a little bit. You're so far away. I hope you sound better now. The floor is yours. 1 minute starts now.
Thanks, Craig. Okay. Having walked for the last 1 week around my Telok Blangah area, I think that there's 2 groups of people that we have left behind. One group of people are the elderly. I found that the elderly are just very bored. They don't have any much activity. If they are creating this old folks home and all that, I think it is not good enough. These people are still active, lively, but they don't have jobs. I don't think that they need any jobs either, but they need to do something to keep them going. So I will want to go and look at how we can get these old age people to come together and do some fun-filled activities once a week, maybe twice a week. Then there's another group that I'm very shocked is actually the people who have some form of mental challenges. I was quite surprised that about easily 10 houses I saw them hoarding so much of things in the house. And I don't know why the social workers in Singapore have not gone to help out or reach out to them. I think in the first place, we really have to grow the number of social workers in Singapore. Because if I have seen at least about 10 houses in Dover and this Tanjung Pagar, Telok Blangah, I'm sure that there are many others in other areas. I think these are the two that I'll give priority first. Thanks.
Right, thank you very much there, Logan. So you have covered the ground and seen cases where the seniors need help. Next is Hazel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Craig. I think that, okay, the reason why I entered education in the first place is because I wanted to make a difference to my students, and I think I will bring that same attitude to the residents in my constituency. I will really help in whatever way I can in a genuine way. And secondly, I think that I am a rather courageous person, and I will dare to speak up in Parliament. I will dare to speak truth to power. And lastly, I forgot what I was going to say.
It's okay. Take your time.
Okay, sorry. I guess I'm a bit nervous. Went right out of my head. Oh yeah, right. I remember now. The last point is that I'm good with numbers, which I hope that I have already demonstrated. And so, I will be able to scrutinize government numbers, statistics well, and I am not easily fooled. Right. That's
right, thank you. So remember to vote for Hazel into Parliament together in the team. The next person is ASG. That's Manwai. Your 1 minute starts now.
Okay, I think all the problems that we have talked about will be tackled, okay, in due course. But important thing is what are the skills and the principles I bring to the job. I think 2 points. One is I will pay a lot of attention to details, okay, and I will be 100% MP to you, full-time 100% MP, okay. I will obtain my attention to details usually leads to a lot of interesting results in my past career. Secondly is I will bring to you my business and financial experience. I'm very much looking forward to running the town council with a few $100 million of revenue. Such an organization from a financial perspective, there's usually a lot of fat, okay, that we can squeeze out. So we will deliver the services to you at better efficiency, okay, and or we can use the savings to do a lot of new projects for our community. Okay, so those are the things that I will bring to the table, and I'm really looking forward to apply my business and financial knowledge to change a little at a time the environment of West Coast GRC. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much there. I'm sure no lacking in experience, having worked with GIC and many banks, institutions. So he brings with him a lot of experience in the financial area. And I heard him say the word squeeze out the fat. Yeah, very interesting take there. Okay, now last but not least, I'm going to give the floor back to the Secretary General of PSP, and it's none other than Dr. Tan Cheng Bock for you to wrap up tonight's session. Doc, the floor is yours.
Okay, Greg, I'll be very brief now. It's quite late now. I'm sure you have heard all the members of my team, and I'm honored. I'm really very proud of them. My last remarks will be again on this COVID-19. I must say that it is a national issue, and it's only not only the PAP can solve this issue. We must all work as a team. As I say, it's a national issue. So I hope they will be prepared to accept help from other than themselves, because we will bring in inputs on a different angle. And together then we can solve this issue so that lives will be safe, economy will come back, and will be a much better Singapore. That's my conclusion. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. There was Dr. Tan Cheng Bock wrapping up for the GRC team from West Coast, and also together with the SMC from Pioneer represented by Chahong. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just before I wrap up, I just want to let you guys know you can buy merchandise to support PSP. You can donate to PSP. You can also watch the Teochew the dialect skit. If you haven't seen it, it must be from another planet because apparently it's gone viral. You can watch it on the PSP Facebook page, on my personal Facebook page, Craig Teo, or it's been going like crazy. So show that to your Akong and your Ama especially, because we need the vote of the pioneer generation, of which Dr. Tan has a very close spot for, especially in this COVID thing. Right now, there is no ministerial task force because Parliament is dissolved. So who's in charge? I just wonder sometimes. Okay, so folks, without further ado, we have come to the end of the program. We thank you for your viewership, especially those people who are joining us on the Zoom webinar and on Facebook Live. And have a great week ahead. And on Friday, make the right decision and vote for PSP and all the other political parties that are in GE 2020. And let's make a change, because why? Einstein said the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, but expecting a different result. So do you want to bang on the same group of people? So don't be insane, Singapore. Let's wake up and have fresh air into the parliament so that no one falls asleep and everyone is busy participating in it. So love to everyone, and we hope you will make the right decision and vote PSP and all the other alternative political parties so that we have 32 seats, okay, so that they no longer have the majority. Love to all. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
We hope you have enjoyed our final e-rally session. Be part of our journey to build an inclusive, compassionate, and progressive Singapore. Vote PSP. Good night.
Send a stronger voice into Parliament to put things right again.
Lower cost of living, make housing affordable.
Good jobs for our citizens and decent living for our poor. Progress Singapore, this is our party. Singapore. Progress Singapore, this is our party. Progress Singapore, or simply PSP.
My young devil, you must have courage, you must have passion, and above all, you must have the strength in courage.
This is our party. Progress Singapore, or simply PSP. Progress Singapore, it's for you and me. For country, for people.
Vote PSP.